is Israel Shalyt. He is probably a unique example of a person without professional translator training can actually found his own school of technical translation. I think that many of us who face specialized in translation use his reference book. Correct me if I'm wrong, how many thousand terms there are? 200,000 cards. So it is a unique piece of work. Intent company, which is headed by Israel Solomonovich, you can find there a lot of materials there. As for me, I actively use those materials when I prepare my lectures and train my students. His approach is somewhat not untraditional in the translation of technical texts, but he is going to share his experience of 20 years. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. I am very happy to see you here. Great thanks to the organizers of this forum, UTIC. In my opinion, they are very professional about it and organized the conference in very complicated conditions. So great thanks to you that you've come and you weren't afraid. I mean, people coming from other countries, they arrived safely. I like it all. Thanks a lot. Now, I understand that some people that listened to the previous report, they are still here. I just heard the end of it, and it seems to me that the problem raised, I mean, some platform where you could place these terms. I think that the reference book of technical translator that we created and have been maintaining for 5 years, I think it is well designed for it. We have to have a small talk about it, and it might be suitable for it because the platform is ready. You can just fill it out. So today I want to tell you about the quality of technical text translation, about translation quality as service. Actually, I divided that due to one simple reason. In our community, we sometimes discuss the issues of translation quality. Some recent events, including two following events. There was a big webinar, a roundtable discussion in the framework of UTIC, which was called Translation Quality and Quality Management Systems. There was also a big event organized by Russian information agency Novosti. It was called High Quality Translation in Significant Projects, Ways to Achieve. Actually, it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. Despite of the fact that both events talk about translation quality according to their titles, if we, text quality wasn't never referred to. They just said that quality is a multifaceted notion. You can talk about literary or linguistic quality, like quality of the text, and that was all that was said. And then they discussed anything really, like quality management system, the quality of translation companies functioning, and the fact that if the company managed the task can actually translate 7 pages of a text in 45 minutes to make it in time for the plane, it's also quality and the like. Actually, there were no specific statements about quality even in the EN15 or 38 standard. I read it very attentively, and there is nothing there about text quality, about technical translation, I mean. Nothing is said about text quality for technical translation in the terminological reference book, main notions of translation studies. And actually, whatever I read and listen to about translation quality, I find nothing specific. Normally they say that translation should be this and that, it should be perceived as an original in the translation language. Well, it's a good thought, but how do you apply it in practice? How do you manage it with the client? Or we strictly adhere to the terms provided by the client? Or leading experts are fulfilling the projects, and editor is also knowledgeable in the specific terminology, or we guarantee maximally precise technical translation and the like. So everyone talks about precision and accuracy and application of the correct terms. Maybe they just don't think about it, or maybe there is some other reason, but they never say that the main task of translation is to convey the sense of the original. And for some reason nobody says that if you take correct terms and translate everything according to grammar into the original text, in many cases it is impossible to convey the sense. In many cases translation is incorrect, or best case scenario, very bad. Besides, if you look at this terminology reference book that I talked about, I really like it if it concerns technical translation. So if you open an article on technical translation, this article was written by Mr. Bazilev, who has PhD professorship in language philosophy, literature studies, translation studies, so probably a well-qualified specialist. He didn't say anything about quality of technical translation. He says that technical translation has the following difficulties or challenges, and he found 3 challenges of technical translation. The first challenge is that technical terms have several meanings. Well, of course it's hard. If you don't look into the sense, you just open up the dictionary and there are 20 minutes. Which one do you choose? The second challenge is that it is a problem which is complicated in technical documents when you translate specifications and tables. Well, no context here, so what kind of term do you choose? It becomes even harder. Well, according to Russian tradition, you have to have 3 of everything, so there should be 3 challenges. And it was very hard for the author to find the third one, and finally he came up with it and wrote the following thing. You won't believe it. Which one is that's false friends of a translator. So actually this is all incorrect, and for a publication like that, which was published by an institute under the aegis of Science Academy, I think it is a shame. So why do you actually do it? Because our company has its own specifics, an engineering company. We are not translators, we are engineers who are able to translate texts according to their specialization or a close one. We know how it should look like, how it should be put, and as we understand that making translation, which we call engineering correct, you have to have 2 or 3 times greater expenses. that means that you'll have to have twice or three times more stuff. We have to learn to explain the client that if he really needs something that I call engineering correct translation, you have to pay 3 times more. And we had to explain it in an understandable way, what you get if you pay 2 or 3 times more. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, I also had to learn to explain to my translators and editors what I expect from them. What I mean when I say it should be an accurate translation, which would be put according to the tradition which exists. A. According to general translation traditions, and B, according to the field traditions, and we'll talk a bit more about that. Okay, now we'll move to the discussion of the quality of technical translation, and I'll tell you a sad story now, if you agree with me. And if you this knowledge won't help you earn more or be more successful or whatever. And in the end, I'm going to say why. So, to look at this problem in a more general way, I think that it would be advisable to formulate the notion of translation project. So, the client has an original document, he wants to receive a translated document. And after receiving this translated document, so that his quality coincides with the expectations that he had, you need to be very attentive and have arrangements about certain things. For example, that's main information about translation projects. You all know what this is, but you have to also to agree about the names of the files or the project. And if the client says, well, you can't do it like that, but you have to make this one and that one, that you might even mistakenly translate the wrong file. We had cases like that. You have to know what is the language of the original document, what is the language of translated document, and more important, what is the designation of this document. And it is very important because the designation of a document for translation is in many cases defined by the level of quality required from it. Well, one thing, if you translate a document designed for a specific construction project, for example, there is technical equipment, and the workers have to know what they connect to what. Here, the accuracy of terms, the absence of stylistic defects in the text, and correct commas, that's not that important. The main thing is for them to understand. And here there is less work. But if you translate a press release or a leaflet or a catalog for designers or a corporate magazine, here you get some different requirements. The quality of engineering and literary qualities of the text, they are much greater, and here we've got more problems, and this document will be done for a longer time, and it will cost more. So you have to understand what is the purpose of this document. Then you have to discuss the requirements to translation, and we'll look at them in detail. Then you have to discuss requirements to desktop publishing, like original and output performance, polygraphy requirements, and the like. And finally, price, the deadline, payment terms, and the like. So this in total, this is what I call translation project. But out of everything, we're going to talk only about requirements to translation of technical text. I don't know if you agree to me or not, but I singled out 6 principal requirements. The first one, the most important one, is how Lenin told us very important, is the conveying sense. The second one is terminology requirements. The third one is traditions. We'll look at it in detail. Then requirements to style, a lack of orthographic, syntactic, and punctuation mistakes, and the like. And now we are going to talk about it. So, conveying the sense. I think that out of all 6 requirements, this requirement is the most important. When I read other translations, I might reconcile myself with mistakes in terminology, with lack of traditions, but I still cannot reconcile myself with sense mistakes. Text put in correct terms and is impeccable in the sense of Russian language, but lacks sense, this text is of no use. And in my opinion, in practice, 3 main ways of technical translation are applied, which are different only with the means of conveying the sense. The first means, I call it formally accurate translation. Someone says just translation. Krimzo said that it is a dictionary translation. The second translation means is translation by analogy, and third is engineerily correct translation, and we are going to discuss those in more detail. What is formally precise translation? How does it look like? Is it translation done with the help of dictionary? Are you fine with it? I'm not going too quick, is it right? Translation is mostly done as a dictionary one. A translation and editor do not consider themselves obliged to delve deeply into the sense of the original text and translate it mostly thinking about grammar of the original language and the agreed glossary. Well, this translation accurately reproduces what was written in the original text, but there are often mistakes in the sense of the text, even though it might look pretty smooth on the surface. But as we talk about technical translation or specialized translation, I needed some kind of example which would be understandable for everyone, but would actually demonstrate this model. So I chose an example, the one that I really like, from a book by Nora Gal. You probably know this book and you know this translator. I'm not going to dwell on that. So the following example. So, in a novel which discusses high society in England, one of the characters says, "I don't believe in segregating the sexes." Anachronistic. And then Nora Gal says that instead of thinking about the sense of the statement, open it up and just bring it home to the reader, the translator just made a calc of this and the other one, and that's what he got.
Я не сторонник сегрегации, точка, анахронизм.
And actually, as for the sexes, Nora Gal doesn't say about it, it's just what I want. The translator didn't include it in the translation because he probably didn't know how to translate it. And then Nora Gal says that this translation is unknown to our reader, the one who doesn't know the tradition of English high society when after dinner men stay to smoke a cigar and then women go to another room to talk about their own affairs. And in the opinion of Nora Gal, you had to translate it according to the character of like this. It's a stupid tradition that women have to leave after dinner. It's anachronistic. So here the Russian-speaking reader understands the sense, even though it's got different words. You don't have this after dinner in the original text. But here we see and can compare what I call formal accurate translation and translation with accurate sense conveyance. Well, this example should be understandable to everyone. And then I wanted to say that we have the same situation with formally accurate technical translation. This is how it's going to look in practice. Well, I also try to find a simple example which should be understandable for everyone. The text about electric connectors. So it's about electric connectors. In this text, you see the following phrase. A translator understands what it is about. So this is a sentence from the catalog. Hot side is created for safety. So if you don't think too much, this is formally accurate translation, the one that you see on the screen. Well, again, we talk about electric connectors. We also have to say that if you look in dictionary, hot, it isn't always something that has high temperature, it's something under tension. Well, in Russian it sounds smoothly and formally reproduces the content of the text, but in the context that we look at electric connectors, it doesn't have any sense. And I think that the client doesn't need translation like that. If you agreed about good quality, of course. But actually, the problem is the construction of an insulator. And those who know what kind of connectors they are and how they provide safety for operation, they'll guess what it is about easily. And they'll be able to find pictures like that. So you see here, here the contact with the number one, the one that's sticking out, it's surrounded by plastic, so you can't touch it with your finger. They can also write down. I'm sorry, I forgot the number, but the fact is that this should be less than 12 millimeters, and another under number 2. That's another part of this connector, and here you are unable to touch it. That means for safety. So you can also find pictures like that, and you see on the left-hand side that electric connectors are inside, in those crates. Like egg crates. But as for that, it is corpse, I just don't see it. It just looks like egg crates. So the translation that I call engineerily accurate, the one that should convey the sense, it can be in the following. The way the contacts of electrical connectors here we have the right sense, and the terminology corresponds, and I think that we cope with the situation. Now I have to say that formally accurate is the most common type of translation. It can be called highly qualified, but the sense is still the same, and this type of translation is provided in this glossary, and this translation is bad from the point of view of the sense. Please note that those sentences cannot be translated with just using the terms, but these situations when we use just the terms the sense we can lose its meaning. So if you talk, if you discuss the correct translation, how can we call the translation correct? And they correspond to the translation theory, and it is very hard for me to discuss this question. I never studied the theory of translation, and I am not a translator, but while being an engineer, I know that if we are talking about some special texts, so the accurate translations cannot be received always, and they just think that the translators are bad, but in fact they just did not discuss the way of translation. And I'm not against the formally accurate translation, but still we have not enough specialists for each of the topic and lots of texts, so we can just agree that on formally precise translation. And I think that in accordance with the translation project, the worker and the client should discuss all the terms, if it should be the formally accurate or it should correspond the meaning. If the translator receives the similar translation, similar work, he can use the analogy and provide the same translation. And if there is the same text that look like the previous one, it will in the end it will look like good. It will be engineerly correct translation, and that's why engineer and editor should discuss the terms. Speaking about terminology requirements, they should correspond in order to avoid the client's needs, and in 95% of cases the client does not give the requirements for terminology. And so the requirements for translation, the main thing is that the customer, the client, and the translator should agree on some facts. A few words about following the traditions of the translation. We have the next requirements that you are all familiar with. So you should not use the synonyms. For example, sometimes we can use the general terms like the furniture, but not like chair, armchair, but it is usually provided and made for his task is to choose between the types of the equipment, and when he meets the synonym, he stops and thinks if this word is correct, or this word should be excluded, or so this is the demand. We cannot use the synonyms. And the next requirement is that the headline should correspond to the text. One more key moment is that while translating the text, we should use such words like it is necessary, it goes, and it should be In practice, it means the following phrase. In a technical document, it should be written in the next way. So, looks similar, but those who read the technical documentation, the person will understand it better, and these are the traditional requirements to the text, to the translation. You can download the methodology book on that on our site, and there are a few demands for specific topics, and in order to feel, to describe and to meet those traditions, it can only be done by a person who reads a lot of books on this subject. Only this person can evaluate the text and understand and show you what is this text about. That's why I just took the examples, 3 examples from the school compositions. Onegin felt hard inside, and he came to Tanya to relax. You know, the thing is that we do understand the sense of this sentence, but as long as this sentence was translated with no traditions, not using the traditions, we can say that pal, you need to read more books, or Tatiana, the soul of Tatiana is full of love, and she's waiting to pass it to someone. And the third sentence is Pugachev helped Grinevu not only in work but in love to Masha. You see, those are we are talking now about the general texts, school texts, because we all have the school education. But if to talk about the specific technical texts, lots of people does not feel that we had one great translator in office. He is a physiologist, and he was sitting and laughing the whole day. But still, I would like to show you this. That's why I chose a few simple examples, for you could feel the difference. I will try to explain you the difference, but if you won't get it, you will have to believe me, believe my words. I will not read what is written in English. For example, a casing specially treated to withstand bad weather conditions. We understand everything, but the tradition of translation is different. Or the specialist who reads this text feels so bad about it, because he knows, he understands that these make no sense, and it sounds not only ridiculous, but it is sad. Supply air is treated to ensure that it is delivered into the occupied space free from contamination. Why not? Why? Most people do write like that. But in the end, this is ridiculous. So, the requirements for stylistic defects. We should agree with the customer on stylistic defects, on this orthography, stylistic punctuation, and for example, if you take the work on you really sometimes you should use few editors, few proofreaders, and the customer also can be important and can be less important, so that's why everything should be discussed with the customer. So everything should be discussed here, and so we have the conclusions that those three demands are formed in strict order, and if you use those demands, those requirements, and you discuss on those requirements with your customer, and so if someone will say to you that this translation is bad, don't believe them, because you discussed it with the customer, because the customer have the right to decide on any set of demands, of requirements. First of our task, and the main task, is to discuss on those requirements with the client, and then implement, then fulfill those demands. And then your text will be quite qualified. For example, if you agreed on precise translation and you fulfilled this precise translation, you provided the very service you agreed with your customer. And this means that the translator did the good job. And if during the process of the translation the customer behaved good, gave all the documents, was always available, that means that the customer has a good employer. And in the next 6 minutes that we have, I would like to say a few words about the quality of translation. I'm not sure if you agree with me, but I have that feeling that I'm not sure that I would like to talk more about quality of the translation. I think that everything has been already said. In practice, I know that not all the translators fulfill all the requirements, and not always they discuss the requirements, but it is different. In one situation you say that I make the precise translation, and the other hand we can say that we provide qualified translation, we provide a great translation, and we have the great quality control systems, and so on and so forth. We have the certified quality managers who control the quality. You know, when I hear words like that, I want to order myself those translations, but still you have to discuss. And this is the difference, like the difference in phrases I know, and I have been learning that. I would like to say a few words about the more. First of all, the engineering correct translation can be implemented easier, because it is usually consists of few pages of corrected text, and it usually mean that if in order to translator could earn his or her salary per month. He should do twice more, who should translate twice more pages in order to receive his salary. For example, but the more pages you take, the more pages you do, the less will be the quality. We cannot found on the market the distant technical translators, but we have to the previous we spent 3 to 5 years on teaching, on raising the decent translator who will correspond to our needs. And the first year we spent not less than 300,000 rubles on his education. Then we spent a huge amount of money on the translator infrastructure. Nowadays, the technical translation is ordered rarely by a specialist. It is more often ordered by the managers or marketing department managers who know nothing about quality of the translation, and they does not know the requirements. They cannot see their task properly, and they cannot optimize their spendings. So that's why the engineerily correct translation should cost more. It is just impossible, because these words like engineerly correct translation sometimes translators complain about the text because they say they want to put it into the trash, but still, as a rule, they do not take the orders. Thanks very much for listening, and if you have further questions, I would love to answer them. Two short questions. You were talking about Ian. There are a few experts on that, but there were some WISA organization. They also had their accreditation systems. I'm not familiar with it. And the next question: how many mistakes can you afford per the text, and how do you evaluate if this or that translation is engineerily correct? If we consider it correct, if 95% of information is 95% of information should correspond. We say to our customer the next thing. We give this translation to our customer, and if there is something that he does not like, we can give it to more editors, to more proofreaders, but still we will have the need to translate some part of the text formally precise, because we definitely surely will have the information that we don't have. So that sometimes the same thought and the same facts can be repeated in the text. That's why we say to the customer that everything depends on text, and they understand the demands. One say. we will say that one phrase we did not manage to translate, and other statistical, grammatical mistakes are you cannot afford. No. As a rule, there is no statistical mistakes because they are all corrected by proofreaders and correctors. I have a question and a commentary at the same time. My name is Alexandra Eklit. And the question is next: why there are 6 but not 7 demands? Where is the feeling of the work? It goes to the sense. We can just escape it. Can completeness be avoided or just go to the sense? If we are talking about the following the traditions, we just don't need to mention it. And the next commentary, I think that the recommendations that were mentioned here first of all, these recommendations go to the author of the text, and if the author of the text will go along with those recommendations, then translator, it will be easier for translator to work with the text, and it is corresponds to that which is taught on the West on the necessary courses, specific courses, and it really helps the demands to the text. The things you said, you named the requirements for the translation, these things can be used easier in translation, and what can I say? I agree with you totally, but I think that they save money on the technical writers along with the technical translation. That's why the quality of those documents is one boy came to me, a guy came to me, and he said, I'm the only Russian here, and the rest are Chinese, Americans, and I received the text and I cannot, I can do nothing about it. Alexey Akimenko, I'm a physicist. I have one addition to formally precise translation. As far as I understand, you were talking about translation translated with a person, by a person who know nothing about this subject. As for me, I would never take the subject which I never faced with, in which I am not confident in. I also think that it is not a translation, but the thing is, Alexander would not let me lie. We often discuss it on the Facebook. I'm telling sorry. The writers are in charge on the sense of the text. We translated it according to the text. That's not our fault, and they just refuse to change the text. That's why I'm telling you that the situation can be different. Thank you very much. Thank you.